righty. I've worn a lot of hats over the past 25 years. Sort of makes me feel old, but I've been lucky to travel around to a lot of different places over that time and see great things that people are doing. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've seen and that I've learned in the US particularly, and share some thoughts about why what you do is really important. First, some of the successes I've seen in the States. Okay, I know this looks more like a challenge than a success, but this was really something. In 1999, then President Clinton signed an executive order, and so that's sort of like passing a law without going through Congress, which is, the way to do it if you can get it done. And it established a National Invasive Species Council in the United States. And this was the culmination of many years of work by many different groups, a lot of politicking, and so it was a big achievement. And the council is designed to coordinate the federal agencies in their invasive species work, which has been more or less successful depending on who you talk to. But more importantly, I think it defined invasive species and elevated the issue to the national level. On the other end of the spectrum, that is at the local level, we started seeing community-led cooperative weed management areas or cooperative invasive species management areas being established about 15 years ago. They were just like springing up all over the country. And I think from what I understand, these are similar, real similar to your regional invasive plant councils. I wanted to illustrate the complexity here. The more we know about invasive species, the more we realize all that we don't know. We're just starting to get a grasp on the interconnectedness of nature and the cascading effects of what we do or don't do when we attempt to manage landscapes. It's difficult to make strong arguments for action and funding to the public and the politicians when beneath it all we have nagging doubts about the long-term effectiveness and consequences of our management. And on top of that, we add the massive unknown of climate change. So, what should we do? Second challenge, because of the way our society operates politically, we're able to plan for and fund only short-term programs. I want you to think, if you know of any projects that are planned or fully funded for sure for 5 years. I have only rarely come across those. And 5 years is really a drop in the bucket in terms of ecosystem restoration, fire regimes, forest regeneration, plant community change. First Nations people talk to us about planning 7 generations ahead. And how can we decide what to pull up or what to plant when we don't even know whether we'll have resources in a year? So how can we make wise choices in this situation? And finally, if you're not ready to crawl under the table here, I think we have a real problem with the general public's lack of connection with nature and natural systems. So it's very difficult to impress on an exhausted and disinterested public the importance of biodiversity and ecosystem functions and invasive species. And if the public isn't outraged and demanding action, our policymakers in Ottawa and Washington aren't going to spend a lot of time helping us find resources and solutions. Our money may be better spent agitating for mandatory ecology education rather than trying to spray out knapweed out of existence. Why do we try our best to conserve and protect natural resources? We're not doing it for the money or the glory, and why should we care? So I'm going to suggest 3 reasons that we all might have in common. First, think back to your childhood for a minute and remember an outdoor place that you loved. Maybe someplace where you just putzed around and looked at stuff, not goal-oriented. Maybe an old tree to climb, the creek down the street that was full of mud and tadpoles, a weedy vacant lot, your grandma's vegetable garden, even a swing set in the backyard. And being in this line of work as adults, we all probably had outdoor places as children, I suspect. So, along those lines, and you can raise your hand, how many of you had an outdoor place as a child that you loved? All right. Yeah, see? And keep your hands up for just a sec. Okay. How many of you could go back to that place today and it would be just the same as when you were there? Oh, a few. All right. That's worth saving. Our little bay, from what I hear, is inundated with zebra mussels now. But this is one of the reasons that we do what we do, because we understand how important it is to protect these special places where kids and adults can experience the fun and the wonder of the outdoors. And we do it because this connection with nature is elemental to who we are today as a person, whether we're conscious of it in the course of our work or not. Okay, second reason we do what we do. A place or a situation that absolutely, consciously, life-changingly stunned us regarding the miracle of nature. Maybe something we studied in school, saw on TV, or experienced personally. Whatever it was, it caused you to think, wow, that is so cool. Something about nature. And once you see something like that, I think you keep discovering new awe-inspiring facts and concepts. And the most recent for me is salmon. And that's why we do what we do. And finally, the third reason we do what we do, which is stewardship, I would suggest, is our connection to each other. And for me, it's the people that keep me coming back to work each day. Give them an inch and they'll take a yard. This works on a t-shirt. This is clever. I think I saw this one in this room somewhere in the last couple days. This one, Beauty's Only Stem Deep, and my favorite, Just Say Mo. I believe every life-loving human on Earth carries a far from agnostic obligation to remain primitive enough and reverent enough to stand up and say to any kind of political power or pole or public, trees and mountains are holy, rain and rivers are holy, salmon are holy, and for this reason alone, I'll fight with all my might to keep them alive. So we can apply that concept to our healthy ecosystems, right? We mustn't lose touch with these reasons why we do what we do, or we can easily become cynical and jaded and pessimistic and burned out. And, you know, while that might qualify us to become a Fox News analyst, it probably won't, you know, further our cause very far or improve our quality of life. When it comes to successful outcomes, I'd place my bet on a group with strong leadership and a little bit of money, rather than a group with buckets of money and no leadership. In times of uncertainty and change, remember to care for each other and your communities. Our colleagues support us, you know, and challenge us to find new solutions. This is the most difficult and the most gratifying at the local level. It can be frustrating to bring together in a community the loggers, the environmental groups, the politicians, the scientific experts, and the folks just trying to keep the roadside clear of weeds. However, a couple years later, when we can all get our picture taken standing in the field with this beautiful, you know, mix of native grasses and forbs, we'll know it was all worthwhile. So speaking as someone who's mostly worked at the 20,000-foot level, I've really come to believe that community efforts at the local level are what make a lasting difference in the end. Really, it's about people. I want to say that I think there's an awful lot of good in the world, and we're not alone in trying to do the right thing, specifically in preventing and reducing the impacts of invasive species. And I want to say that it's not ridiculous or naive to be hopeful about the work that we do. So let's go do it.